Deputy Minister, Kaymakcı, Ambassador Christian Berger, the CEO of Eurochambers, Arnaldo Abruzzini, Vice President of Eurochambers and the President of Turkish Union of Chambers, Rifat Sarcıklıoğlu. And dear participants, welcome to the webinar on post-COVID-19 Turkey-EU economic and trade relations. This webinar is organized by the EU-Turkey Business Dialogue Project. Let me brief you shortly about the project. The project is the third generation of chamber and business dialogue projects supported by the European Commission since 2001. Those projects have been implemented by Eurochambers and TOP, as I said, since 2001. And we have managed to organize hundreds of technical events and hundreds matchmaking between Turkish and the EU chambers, and also a lot of dialogue projects between Turkish and the European business. So this is the third generation project, as I said, called EU-Turkey Business Dialogue Project. And here the European Union has contributed almost 5 million euro for this project, where the co-financing provided by TOBB around 300,000 euro. Today, I would like to start by first Vice President of Eurochambers and the President of Turkish Union of Chambers, Rifat Sarcıklıoğlu. He will start with his opening remarks, then we will continue with the other panelists. Once again, thank you very much and welcome. Please, President, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mustafa. Deputy Minister Kaymakcı, Ambassador Christian Berger, my dear friend and the CEO of the Eurochambers, Arnaldo Abruzzini. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you all on behalf of the Union of Chambers and Commodity Exchange of Turkey and the Eurochambers. This afternoon, we would like to talk about the post-COVID-19, Turkey and EU economic and trade relations. First of all, I am grateful for cooperation under the EU-Turkey Business Dialogue Project. And I would like to thank the European Commission for the financial support offered to projects targeting dialogue between Turkey and the EU. I also would like to thank Ambassador Christian Berger for his commitment, dedication, and hard working to keep Turkey-EU business alive during the most difficult times. Of course, we will appreciate my dear friend Arnaldo for his hard working and contributions to the European Chamber Network. Arnaldo and his team have been supporting the capacity building process of the Turkish Chamber Network. Last but not least, Deputy Minister Kaymakcı has been a great advocate of the Turkey-EU relations. As a diplomat and as a deputy minister, has always been very close to business and civil society. He gives priority to the projects supporting dialogue between different layers of the society: business, youth, students, media, and others. Ladies and gentlemen, Turkey and the EU are both partners and allies. Turkey has been targeting the EU membership for almost 60 years. We have managed a lot in the economic integration. The custom union is a great achievement for both and the EU, Turkey and the EU. Over the course of the several decades, our economies has become closely integrated. Turkey is a candidate country to the EU. The EU is number of one trading partner of Turkey. Turkey is the 5th largest trading partner of the EU. And the EU is by far the major source of investment for Turkey. Mostly important, we share and defend the same values and norms the EU is built on. Ladies and gentlemen, the world is facing the world crisis since Second World War. The COVID-19 is a global crisis. Solidarity, speed and optimism should be our main arms for fighting with this pandemic. Public health was at the center of the immediate response to the pandemic in all our countries. We all followed the advice of the scientists. We saved lives, protect our healthcare system, and bought time to find treatments and advance research for a vaccination. During the pandemic, the business, especially the SMEs, have been hurt more than others. The closure of national borders, the uncoordinated national pandemic responses, and the breakdown of the free circulation of goods, services, and people hit the business everywhere. The business people are the right experts to contribute to the national recovery plans. We, as the Chamber Network, are not acting with narrow business interests. We work for healthy and competitive business. We need to sustain our production capacity. We pay attention to preserve jobs. We work to make sure that safety is ensured for all employees. Turkey and the EU should cooperate more during the post-COVID-19. We need to reorganize the pre-COVID-19 supply chains. We have to mitigate supply chain risks. We have to shorten the long trade routes. While manufacturing, we have to concentrate more on time delivery. I think there's a great untapped potential both for Turkey and the EU in the post-COVID-19 era. The production capacity, geographical proximity, and the high-skilled human resources will help our future cooperation. Here, I would like to refer to the Customs Union once again. As I pointed out that Customs Union has helped a lot both the EU and Turkey. We have achieved remarkable trade and investments figures. Now we need to upgrade the Customs Union. We should include service agriculture, products, and public procurement in our Customs Union. We should give priority to start negotiations. 2 days ago, as the Euro Chambers, we met the European Commissioner responsible for the neighborhood and enlargement. President of Euro Chambers, my dear friend Christoph, expressed the will of the Euro Chambers for upgrading the Customs Union. He also promised the Euro Chambers support to the European Commission. We need the support of the EU business for a wider and better functioning Customs Union. As the business community in Turkey, we are facing the visa issue. This discourages the business to do more business in the EU. Road transport quotas are barrier in front of the free movement of the goods between the EU and Turkey. Turkey has been implementing pre-accession assistance since 2002. I have to say that we were disappointed in recent years because of the cuts from IPA funds to Turkey between 2014 and 2020. I hope that in the upcoming IPA 3 period, there will be no further cuts. We need to support Turkey to align itself with the EU. Also, participation in the EU programs is an important dimension of Turkey-EU relations. My dear friends, we all need Europe more than ever. We should all avoid from protectionism. We need more dialogue, solidarity, and optimism. Let's work together for the welfare of our citizens. Thank you very much for attending this webinar.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Now, I would like to give the floor to CEO of Eurochambers, Arnaldo Abruzzini, for his remarks. Arnaldo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mustafa. Mr. President, Izarjigoglu, Ambassador Berger, Deputy Minister Kaymakcı. It is certainly a reality that Eurochambers has been active in fostering the relationship between the European Union and Turkey since many years. Indeed, TOBB has been one of the long-standing members of Eurochambers of roughly 50 years of membership in this European organization. That certainly demonstrates the engagement that Eurochambers and Eurochambers members have in profiling the business community, the European business community interest in having a strong, solid, and long-lasting relationship with Turkey. Now, it is my pleasure to share with you some thoughts about what we have learned from this COVID-19 crisis and what we could do in the next future. So the first element that we have learned that no country is immune. There is no a single country around the world that could say that the citizens or the society that belong to that specific country has been immune to this COVID-19. That means as well that there are certain elements that do not recognize borders. Borders, it is something that human beings have created mainly for administrative reasons. Administrative that can go from the word to education, to health, management of the territories. But there are, as I said, elements like the COVID-19 that do not recognize this administrative element. But even more, if we look at the history, people tends to overcome borders and frontiers for their own interest. And indeed, what has been mentioned by President Izarjigoglu is that the relationship between EU and Turkey actually are in line with this understanding of there are borders, but we want to do something together. And that's something, it is clearly expressed in the figures that we can report on the trade between EU and Turkey of export and import, which are absolutely important for both sides. Individually, member states do export and invest a lot in Turkey and import as well, and Turkey is an important trading partner for Europe. So the notion of border during this COVID-19 has been really stressed, and we might have today a different understanding how borders work. And as member of the European Union and citizens of the European Union, I recognize that the European Union itself is the largest experiment in the world of softening borders. If you consider the rule and existence of our internal market, actually, this is an attempt to soften the hard borders we have among our member states. Now, a third element that we have learned that in today's economy, value chain are absolutely interconnected on a global scale. Those that believed in the past that we could survive as economy closing our borders and applying protectionist measures have understood now that that would come with a cost, an extreme high cost of disruption of the value chain. There are examples on this, and I would also make a paradoxal example, which it is what we have learned during the Brexit process. Actually, Brexit are shown as exactly the same, that our economies are so interlinked today that any disruption to our relationship would come to a very high cost. The last point that I want to touch is, despite business interest expressed in trade figures, there are societal interests. Let's just imagine the flow of people coming back and forth from and to Turkey, from and to the European Union. We can take the figures about tourism. We can take the figures about migration. We can take figure about professional links. So there is an enormous amount of interest in our societies to be interconnected. So, but if this is what we have learned thanks to COVID-19, what are the actions that we could expect to put forward in the near future? Well, the first action is, because all these links and interconnection, any measures that should be decided from one on the other side, it will be much more effective if this would be coordinated among ourselves. So taking decisions and measures that are not coordinated among the EU and the Turkey side, that would not result in a maximization of the potential benefit of those measures. The second element is, if it is true that our value chains are so interconnected, those value chains had to be preserved. And the element that we should understand is that any increasing obstacles or hard barriers at the border will create additional burdens for the effectiveness of the value chain. If competitive advantage of one side will be deleted by increasing administrative burdens, chances that businesses will look elsewhere are increasing. So to facilitate the upscale of the value chain between EU and Turkey, we should diminish at the most the administrative barriers and administrative burdens of one on the other side. Last but not least, we need to understand the societal challenges we have today. The planet that we are living in today has been shaped by continuous migration of people since centuries or since ages. We cannot pretend today that that will stop because we have some administrative borders that we decided to keep. We need to facilitate the movement of people, would they be residents, citizens, transiting through our countries for different reasons, but the movement of people is what shapes our society. If we will respect, hence, the willing of people to move, to interact, the willingness of business to strengthen relationship and to take advantage of the each other advantage, competitive advantages, and the understanding that no country is immune and can do it by itself, I'm sure that we will be able to create an even better environment between EU and Turkey in the near future. I give you the floor, Mustafa.
Thank you very much, Arnaldo. Now I would like to give the floor to Ambassador Christian Berger. Ambassador, the floor is yours, please.
Mustafa, thank you very much, and thank you for organizing this and inviting us with all these colleagues. So I thank Rifat Bey for this opening speech, and also Arnaldo, and I'm looking forward to listen to Faruk in a minute. I think it's a good discussion. It's a good topic. Normally, I think our discussions, our engagement are very practical. We talk about with the Chamber of Commerce. We talk about cheese. We talk about hazelnuts. About the automotive sector. We talk about energy efficiency, skills enhancement, vocational training. So I think now to talk about the impact of Corona and COVID, both in Turkey and Europe, what it means for the trade relationship and the economic relationship between us, I think is a very important initiative that TOP has taken. I'm very grateful for that. Now, we have heard already a few words about the pandemic, but let me just make this very clear how we see this. This is a pandemic of an unknown, unprecedented magnitude in the way it has hit the globe, the speed that it hit the globe, and the countries, the number of countries it has reached. Now, and it also has affected and disrupted personal lives. It has disrupted businesses, and that is disrupted, as we've already heard from Arnaldo, it has also disrupted the supply chain. And the supply chain is very important for a number of things. It's very important for keeping employment. It's very important for the industrial output, which we have seen has gone down. It is very important for commodity prices, which have gone up. We have seen it's important for foreign trade, again, which has slowed down and has been reduced in size. And as we have heard before, also for the capital flow for foreign direct investment. All these figures have been affected by the crisis. When you look at the European figures alone, you will see that our GDP will shrink, depending on the way it's being calculated, to up to 7.4%. Unemployment has reached 9%. And you may recall the last speech of Commission President Juncker at the European Parliament, where he very proudly said that we have reached the highest number of employment in the European Union, of about 235 million people. So again, with this crisis, this figure and this achievement has been affected. We also see a growing budget deficit. So the budget deficit is forecasted now to 8.3% to GDP, and something that affects both the European Union and Turkey. Trade has shrunk. So the expectation for 2020 for the European Union that trade will be reduced between 10 to 16%, with all the knock-on effect to our partners. Now, one important point that Arnaldo already mentioned is Turkey being part and parcel of the supply chain. So this is true for big industries like the motor vehicle industry, machinery and textile, but for many other industries too. And it shows the interconnectivity between the European Union and Turkey. The importance of the European Union and Turkey being partners, also now overcoming this crisis, and to have a coordinated response that Arnaldo spoke about. This this also necessitates a cooperation between the European Union and Turkey at the global stage, in cooperation with global organizations, multilateral organizations that deal with trade issues. One example of this close cooperation we've seen at a conference a few weeks ago that was called by the European Commission to raise funds for finding a vaccine. Turkey took part in this conference. There was an important message by President Erdogan. There was a pledge by Turkey of 75 million euros to take part in finding this vaccine. So it's one example of this cooperation, but there are many other examples, and I'll come to a few practical ones in a minute. Now, where are we now in terms of crisis response? So I think we're leaving behind the first phase, and the first phase was making sure that the health systems work, the health systems do not collapse. And you recall the fear in the early days in February and in March, when many people were afraid that our health systems could not cope with the number of patients, either patients in hospitals in general, patients in intensive care units, and therefore a lot of measures were taken to fight the spread of the disease, and many of these measures obviously impacted the economy. Now, very quickly, very practical steps were taken by many countries around the world, in strengthening the health system. And I think Turkey was very successful in making sure that the health system is not affected by the disease. In the European Union, the same thing happened. In addition, what happened was, on a very practical level, to bring people back. About 550,000 people were brought back into the European Union, also from Turkey, with the help of the Ministry of Transportation and the airport authorities and Turkish Airlines. We also have seen a procurement program for protective gear, for gloves, for masks, and other protective gear, and we have introduced something that is trying to make sure that the flow of trade across European borders, but also borders inside the European Union, will continue. This concept of green lanes. So we had issues at the beginning, also in the relationship between the EU and Turkey, and this to make sure that there is no impact on this flow of goods. And I must say, we had very practical, very fruitful meetings and discussions at the level of the European ambassadors with a number of ministers, with the Minister of Trade, with the Minister of Health, and this morning we had a very important meeting with the Minister of Tourism to talk about the impact of the crisis on tourism. So we are entering now into a new phase, and this new phase is addressing the socio-economic impact and primarily the economic impact of this crisis. European member states and the Commission and the European institutions have come together and have created what is called Team Europe, and Team Europe has come up with a response package, and the response package has several components. The first one is the Commission eased the rules on budgetary deficit, meaning member states can also spend no more money in fighting the disease, in fighting the impact of the disease on the economy. Secondly, the Commission has also eased the rules on state aid, meaning that countries can support companies. We have seen in the last few days several countries announcing their support to airlines that have been hit very hard by the crisis. Secondly, a massive financial package has been put together with, again, various components, the biggest being the purchasing program of the European Central Bank. 750 billion euros will be spent to buy private and public securities. This has just been topped up yet again. Then the European Investment Bank has launched a support program for small and medium-sized enterprises, again, very important for you, for your partners in the European Union. And the European Commission has launched very specific support packages for individual sectors, so agriculture, forestry, tourism, many other different sectors that are being rolled out now one by one. A couple of weeks ago, the European Commission President, Mrs. von der Leyen, presented an idea which is called New Generation Europe, which includes another financial support package of 500 million in terms of grants and 250 million in terms of supported loans. And here we have 3-4 principles. Principle one is we want to enhance now resilience and preparedness. Resilience, again, to make sure that the various structures that deal with crisis can withstand the onslaught of another wave, for example, but other different type of crisis that may be possible. Food crisis, food scarcity. You may have seen and heard the comments made by the UN Secretary General a couple of days ago on this issue. Secondly, climate change, climate crisis, drought, floods, forest fires. I mean, all this needs to be, we need response structures. So resilience, I think, is at the forefront of what we're doing now. And secondly, hand in hand with it is preparedness. Another component of this strategy is to leave nobody behind, neither individuals nor regions, because different regions in Europe have different demands, have different needs. Also, by moving into what the Commission President calls the Green Deal. So again, different requirements and different support is needed to enable these regions to move into this Green Deal approach. Which is also meant to stimulate new growth and sustainable growth inside the European. And the second component of this approach is the digital transformation of the economy. Again, I think something the participants here today and the members of TOB and the members of the Chamber of Commerce would be very interested to continue this discussion with the European Union and their counterparts, how this digitalization of the economy will now be move forward. And funds are being made available for this. For the Green Deal, for example, €1 trillion is being made available to improve the performance of transportation industry, for example, but also energy, of many other aspects that have an impact on the climate. So what we see is, on the one hand, a number of challenges to deal with the socioeconomic impact, but at the very same time, what I've tried to line out is also an opportunity for businesses to go into new type of endeavors, new type of businesses, develop new equipment, machinery, technology, and processes that will support this idea of the Green Deal and the digital transformation. So it's challenges and opportunities in the post-COVID crisis, and we hope we can work as closely as possible with our Turkish partners, the business partners among themselves, but also from the European Commission side with the Turkish government. There are a lot of ideas and a lot of possibilities of strengthening and deepening, broadening this cooperation. Rifat Bey has asked a couple of questions about the customs union and visa liberalization. I'm happy to answer this maybe later, but I'm sure Faruk will also have something to say on that, so maybe we can take this up later. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I think this discussion today is very important because all of us, we need to work together to get out of this impact of the on the economy. Thank you.
Ambassador, thank you very much for your remarks. And now I would like to give the floor to Deputy Minister Kaymakcı. And Minister, the floor is yours.
Çok teşekkürler Mustafa Bey. Sevgili Top Başkanımız, dear CEO Abruzini, dear Christian, I think you are still in Brussels.
Not for long.
So we expect you to be in Ankara soon. The planes are operational again. Thank you very much, and dear participants, dear members, dear representatives of different chambers of trade and commerce. So I am happy to be with you today. I think we are having a very timely discussion. We have to look at the future. I am the last speaker, so there is not much left for me to say. Most of the things that I wanted to say, were already referred to. But I will, maybe go quickly on different points. First, I think this pandemic has been, a difficulty that we have not faced so far in our history. So it is huge, it is enormous, and it has not only affected health sector, but it has affected our trade, our economy, our transport, our daily life. So it's a huge pandemic. And then, of course, we realized the importance of making sure that the supply chain, is operational. I think this was very important. When we look at the figures today, of course, it seems that we will lose, something of 13 to 30% in our trade volume globally. So it's a major, I think, worry. Again, in tourism, when we look at the tourism sector, we are talking about a loss of around 60 to 80%, depending on the countries. Of course, when we look at the unemployment and inflation rates, also we are not, quite optimistic about the future. So we have a huge challenge to face together. But luckily, there is the EU, in some part of Europe, but there is also Turkey as a candidate country, and also as a member of Turkey-EU Customs Union. I think our joint efforts, can help us, together to find common solutions to our problems. Already, of course, Christian mentioned what the EU has been doing recently in terms of recovery, in terms of finding vaccine, and also in terms of tackling the current socioeconomic problems. So Turkey also adopted some financial employment packages. We hope that this will help, Turkish economy. We realized that transportation was so important, and we needed, a transportation, a flow of goods without any interruption. I think thanks to the good and timely coordination of the EU, we were able to make sure that the green lane functioned quite well. Otherwise, if the countries had taken, unilateral measures, as they did actually in the first phase of the crisis, I think we could have faced a major crisis. So the green lane, which also included the candidate countries, I think helped to make sure that this, the supply of especially, perishable agricultural goods, we did not face a major problem. And of course, Christian mentioned, Turkey means also connectivity, because Turkey also means that Turkey is connecting the rest of Europe to Asia, to Caucasia, to Middle East, and also to Asia. And I think during this time, many goods of the EU had to go through Turkey, but our borders were without any problem, and the flow of goods ran quite well. We realized that railways are important. We realized that our ports should be functional. I think logistics became more and more important during this crisis, and I think in the future we have to continue to work on joint projects in transport area. So when we look at the future, I think the immediate sector that we have to tackle is tourism, because it is now summertime, it's the tourism season, summer tourism season. And of course, as many Mediterranean countries of Europe faced, a lot of problems, I think we need to work on tourism right now. And of course, the EU has taken its own recommendations and its own decision, which unfortunately includes only the EU member states and EFTA countries, as well as exiting UK. So, but we know that Turkey is quite safe as many EU member states. I think Turkey should have been included in the tourism package of the EU, because we know that at least 21 million European tourists would like to come to Turkey. And actually half of our guests are from Europe. So, and I know that, for example, Germany has taken a decision recently, but German tourists, last year we had 6 million of them, are putting pressure on their government, on the travel agencies, that Turkey should also be recommended, and we should develop, maybe some joint actions to enable our citizens to move freely. And of course, talking about tourism, as Rifat Bey mentioned, visa is a big problem for Turkey. So last year, for example, we had 1 million applications for Schengen visa. And this has cost us at least 200 million euros. Basically 200 million euros on average were thrown for nothing. And, but more than the cost, what is important is that it prevents contact among business community, and it prevents contacts among people. So we hope that we can make progress on visa liberalization. And of course, maybe you will find not so interesting to talk about, visa right now, because countries are trying to close their borders to the foreigners. I mean, at least this has been the case in the last 3-4 months. But now, hopefully, we will open up borders. And actually, Turkey, from 1st of June, moved into the normalization process. And as of today, we also opened our doors to foreigners, so they will not be subject to quarantine. Of course, if there is no problem. So from now on, we hope that we don't miss this tourism season. So visa is an important issue, but it's a non-trade, non-tariff barrier. President Abruzuni mentioned some of the technical obstacles to trade, the bureaucracy and other things, but visa is the major obstacle, especially to trade, but also to other things in Turkey, EU relations, in Turkey and the rest of Europe relations. In terms of trade, of course, as Christian mentioned, there is some sort of important, I mean, there is an important level of decrease in our bilateral trade with the rest of Europe. And I hope that we can start recovering from June on, because now we are opening up again our businesses almost to the full level, and I hope we can recover. So during this time, of course, the pandemic time, we had to develop some sort of digital trade, and we have to check our standards, especially in agricultural goods. We have to do trade online. We have to, develop some sort of digital trade, and this is good. Of course, Turkey has already been in the digitalization process, but with the pandemic, we have increased, the level of digitalization in trade. And of course, how are we going to recover, after such a major setback in trade, in economy, and in investment? As you know, the European business community suggested to the European leaders that the update of the Turkey-EU Customs Union would be a major contribution, because we have a customs union since 1996, which is limited only to industrial products and processed agricultural products. But we need to expand this to services, to agriculture, maybe to energy, to public procurement. And I think, we can have a huge impact, and this can really accelerate our recovery in Turkey and in the rest of Europe, because Turkey and the EU are big trade partners. For us, the EU is the biggest market, biggest trade partner. For the EU, Turkey is the 5th biggest trade partner. So the impact of, an expanded, enlarged, and modernized customs union, I think would really accelerate the recovery in Europe in general. And this can also help us in terms of employment rates. And I hope that during the German presidency of the EU, which will start at the beginning of July, we can make some progress to this effect. So customs union update, is a vital issue. And we hope that this will not over-politicize as it has been so far. So I mentioned, tourism, I mentioned visa, and I mentioned Turkey-EU Customs Union, but also Turkey and EU has got closer during this crisis. And actually, the EU invited all the candidate countries to be part of the EU Solidarity Fund. And our Ministry of Health is working to submit some projects to the EU side. But also, as Christian mentioned, Turkey has joined the European Commission and G20 initiative to host a summit, a donor summit to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic through research, but also through helping vulnerable countries. There was also a vaccine summit on the 4th of June, where Turkey was also present. And we have seen the importance and the weight of Turkey during this pandemic. Turkey, being part of Europe, has been able to supply very quickly many, medical equipment to the rest of Europe. Even before the EU has acted in some of the EU member states, Turkey has been able to provide assistance. And Turkey has a very strong medical industry. We have now even started exporting ventilators. So progress has been quick. I think in the future with the EU, we should make more progress in health industry and in research and innovation. Of course, we have the Horizon 2020 program, in which we can also put our efforts together to find vaccine and treatment to COVID. Of course, Rifat Bey mentioned that the Directorate for EU Affairs is working closely with the business community and the civil society I mean, this discussion is part of an EU-Turkey project, which is Turkey-EU Business Dialogue Program implemented by TOP, and we are really grateful for TOP and for the Euro Chambers to implement this project and to bring Turkish and other European business communities together for the benefits of all of our citizens in Europe. But we have also other projects, like here the civil society program. We have also the improvement of customs union for fair trade and competitiveness of small and medium-sized enterprises. So these are all useful projects, and it will help our business community in this difficult time. Of course, I mentioned the transport issue, you know, but also I would like to underline the air transport, which played also a key role during this crisis. Turkey has the Turkish Airlines and also other companies which have been quite active during the crisis. So Turkish Airlines continued, you know, their cargo flights during this crisis to many destinations, but also Turkey and EU worked together in the EU civil protection mechanism to bring some of Turkish and other European citizens back to their countries from different parts of the world. So this was also an important element in terms of Turkey-EU cooperation. So we hope that during the German presidency, we can make progress on tourism, on customs union updates, on visa liberalization, but also on health cooperation, and hopefully we can find a treatment and vaccine against the COVID-19 so that we can return quickly to normal days. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. And now we have all the speeches done. We have time for the questions. But before reading the question, we have received, Ambassador, there are issues mentioned by Rifat Bey, by Deputy Minister, and you may refer to them first: the visa issue, the transport quota issue, the customs union, Turkey not being regarded as tourism destination until August, end of August. I mean, that is the news in the newspapers by the EU, and also adding Turkey this IPA 3 funds. You may would like to refer to these issues. Then I read the questions, Ambassador. Please unmute, Ambassador. Please unmute.
Sorry, thank you very much. These are the big issues that we very often discuss. Now, let me start with the customs union. I mean, you know very well the position of the European of the institutions, particularly the European Commission. The Commission has proposed a mandate for the negotiations of the update of the customs union, and for political reasons, for the time being, this mandate has not been given yet. There are studies that we have undertaken together with the World Bank that shows the win-win situation of modernizing the customs union. But what we see today, we also see a number of erosions of the existing customs union. We have seen the last few weeks and a couple of months more tariffs being introduced. I understand the reasons. It has to do with the crisis situation and protecting Turkish business. But nevertheless, this we think is not totally in line with the customs union. We have also seen some non-tariff barriers that are being introduced in providing information or using certain ways of documentation. So these are all issues that obviously impact the implementation of the current customs union. But it's being discussed. I mean, it's not that it's not being discussed between DG Trade and the Trade Ministry, and I hope we will find a way out of this. Faruk mentioned the incoming German presidency, so there are some expectations that maybe also that issue can be addressed, because these issues are being handled by the rotating presidency of the European Union. On visa liberalization, we all know, I mean, Turkey has fulfilled the larger part of the benchmarks, the requirement for visa liberalization. There are some outstanding ones, and I know that Faruk is working very hard with other ministries in coming up with a proposal how to overcome those issues and to make sure that these benchmarks can be met. So once this is done, this discussion will then obviously continue. On IPA, yes, the funds under IPA 2 were reduced, partly for political reasons and partly because of the what we call the backlog that was accumulated since 2016. But again, Faruk has been working very hard with his team in making sure that this backlog is being reduced and the money that has been made available under IPA 2 is being spent as efficiently and as quickly as possible. Under IPA 3, we are changing our approach and methodology. It's no longer a country allocation of funds. It's an allocation for different topics and subjects because we have learned a lesson from the previous rounds of IPA 1 and IPA 2 that at the beginning of a period, we don't have enough good, well-defined, well-designed projects. So it takes quite some time until this new round of IPA gets started. And then you have at the beginning very little funding spent, and then at the end you really need to speed up the implementation. So we are now focusing on areas, and we are taking on projects. We will be taking on projects according to the level of maturity and necessity of funding this project. So that's a different approach. And I know again from our talks with various ministries that there's a lot of preparation work already on the way, and also again Faruk has had, I think, a very successful meeting with line ministries in getting ready for IPA 3. So I think we are at least here on a good track. On tourism, I also just saw the news flash. So there was an evaluation done on the basis of the epidemiological data. And therefore, a certain decision was taken to include a number of countries. But this was already from the beginning. The idea was to have this onion layer approach, so starting gradually and adding more and more countries to opening up tourism. So I would think that Turkey will follow here very soon, given the development. We had a good meeting this morning, as I said, with the Minister of Tourism, who explained the measures and steps that are being taken in the tourist destinations, the tourist industry, by the airlines. He has invited also the diplomatic community to visit Antalya next weekend. So again, this will be very important to get a very direct picture of how Turkey has prepared for this. So I'm sure this will have a very important impact also on the decision making in Brussels. Transport, sorry, I haven't really talked about transport because transport is not a competency of the European Union; it's a competency of the individual member states. And I think one of the ideas of the customs union update and modernization will also discuss that in that context. But for the time being, it's really a bilateral issue.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Now I have some questions for all of you, probably. The first one is from DG RTD. How COVID-19 has brought Europe and Turkey together in exchange the latest research information and best practices on tackling the crisis? Probably Deputy Minister and Ambassador. Would you like to answer? Should I repeat it, the question?
Yes, I can say a few words.
Okay, please.
Yes, as I have mentioned, Turkey has been part of, EU's framework agreements in the past, in terms of innovation and research. And right now we have the Horizon 2020, and our, research institute, TÜBİTAK, is really working closely within the context of Horizon 2020. And, I think in the future, cooperation will increase. Of course, our chambers, and sorry, can you hear me now?
Yep.
So, and also some companies and some chambers in Turkey are also involved with Horizon program. And I hope in the future we can present more projects. But as President Erdogan mentioned, you know, during his speech on the 4th of May, when we had, you know, the pledge conference against the COVID-19, Turkey, you know, has spent and will be spending around 75 million euros. Some of it, you know, is used as medical equipment support to third countries, but some of it is into research. And of course, through some of the EU projects, EU IPA projects, as well as Horizon projects, you know, we will be cooperating, and we will, you know, we will be also inviting many companies and many universities to be part of this project. So that's it.
Ambassador,
Sure.
Ambassador, please.
No, I think Faruk has covered it already quite in good detail. So yes, first of all, the conference is a good example of this cooperation, but it's not only pledging the money. I think what comes out of there is also cooperation at the technological, scientific, and research level. And here we have a number of initiatives, not only Horizon 2020, where we're spending about 80 billion euros. There's the funding is available in bringing European and Turkish research facilities together. But also with the European research area, a number of initiatives were launched, including recently, end of April, a hackathon that is bringing together companies, research institutions, and various organizations, civil society organizations, to come up with innovative ideas how to address the crisis situation and the conflict. And also Turkish partners have been very active in this. Among the top 3 teams, you have Turkish representatives there. So I think it's a very close interlinkage between Turkish researchers and the European counterparts. Also under the IPA competitiveness and innovative program, there's a lot of work going on and now focused on the crisis, on Corona. And we have to see if of the various RD projects that we are running, if that could be used to respond to the situation. I also mentioned already that we had this meeting and discussion last week with Minister of Health Kocher, with the ambassadors of the member states of the European Union, and he also, like Faruk just mentioned, he underlined the importance of this close cooperation between the EU and Turkey on this issue. There's also a very close cooperation with the European Center for Disease Prevention and Control. There is an exchange of data. There's an exchange of views of best practices, which is compared. Surveys are undertaken. So there's a lot of work that is already going on in bringing together Turkish institutions, researchers, but also companies with their partners on the European side.
Thank you very much. With your permission, I would like to ask to read the second question, which is from Tarsus Commodity Exchange, Tunar Alegöz. What will change when we export fresh fruit and vegetable to the EU countries after COVID-19? Do you expect any change?
Do you want me to answer this?
Yes, please.
Well, as far as I can. We have seen some easing of procedures. So easing in terms of how people can apply for the export, can send documentation electronically. So that has already happened. to address the problems that we have with direct engagement and interaction. So papers that can be used for exportation, but also papers for laboratories, for testing. All of that, I think we have seen an easing of the requirements and procedures on the post-COVID situation. I don't think that I haven't seen any much of a debate going on if the import rules will change or not. I know there is a lot of general debate going on. Rifat Bey sort of alluded to it early on, to see what are the advantages of Turkey in respect of certain markets, certain production lines. I mean, we've had discussions about relocation of the production of strategic goods into the customs union area, meaning in the European Union and in Turkey. And I can imagine the same considerations are being also done for fresh food and other foodstuffs to make sure that there is no interruption of supply whenever we are being hit by a crisis. And I repeat what I said early on, there are, of course, concerns in the international community, including the ones by the Secretary General of the UN a couple of days ago about food scarcity. So I think it's good to have this debate and see what can be done both in the country, in Turkey, but also in cooperation with our partners to make sure that these supply lines can be maintained and strengthened.
If I
Yes.
can add a few words.
Sure.
Fresh vegetables and fresh fruits are, I think, are strong points of Turkey. And, we have a very strong agriculture sector, but also our agricultural sector is rather organic, I would say. So during this crisis, actually, there is one area where we had increase in our export is fresh fruits and vegetables, mostly to Germany. But this is, I think, because of the lack of production, mostly in Italy, in Spain, in Portugal, in southern European countries. And I think it has helped us to export more. And as Christian mentioned, now we can have online certification when we try to export, these perishable goods. And also thanks to the green lane, so we will not have much problem at customs for the fresh vegetables and fruit. But of course, to answer the question, since if we want to export more to the rest of Europe, I think we have to rise our standards, because EU is quite tough in terms of certification, in terms of pesticides, for example, and I think we have to reduce the level of pesticides in some products where EU is quite tough in terms of pesticides. So, but I see a big, prospect in the future in terms of exports of fresh vegetables and fruits.
Mustafa, if I can just add one sentence, because when Faruk Bey talked about pesticides, that's an important point. When you look at the Green Deal proposal of the European Commission for the next year, there's a proposal to reach a target of a reduction of about 50% of the use of pesticides, reduction about 20% of the use of fertilizers, and also to increase agricultural land for organic production to about 25%. So these are the big targets of the Green Deal, which I think but it's not for immediate now, but this is more in the long term, and still has to go through various procedures in the European Parliament and with the member states. But we also had the Farm to Fork initiative just recently. Again, very very important about organic production, but also to make sure that that food supplies and supply chains are being maintained.
In fact, we have 10 minutes, but a lot of questions. I'll try to, again, to read as much as I can. The third one is from Mersin Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Sinem Cham. What do you think about the digitalization of the relations between Turkey and the EU in terms of commercial activities, what kind of new implementations we can observe? Or is it possible to observe something new regarding the digitalization, which became the trending topic in every part of the world? General question on the digitalization between Turkey and the EU relations. Any? Arnaldo, you may would like to react. I know you are active on digitalization.
Well, I think that something has already been mentioned on this. I mean,
yeah.
it is clear that we are all becoming skilled users of the digital world today. And happily enough, we are seeing also administrations and public administrations moving alongside. And certainly the initial steps to digitalize certificates and the mission of documents, trade documentation, it is an absolutely incredible step ahead for everyone that is engaged in trading activities. But that could go much further than this. With the development of the new services, we are seeing that also much of the trade fairs, events, matchmaking. I mean, there is a lot which is happening today in the digital world that we should be able and ready to jump on the train as soon as we can. But this is applying certainly to EU-Turkey relationship, but very much to the world itself.
Thank you. Any other reaction, or I ask another question? I will read another question. Okay. To the Vice Minister from Gözde Meşeli. Other than the tourism and medical industry, what sectors do you think Turkey has an advantage in and should invest in the post-COVID period?
I think, as I have already mentioned, agriculture seems to be interesting because we have seen during this pandemic that providing, fresh vegetables and fresh fruits, and also, to make sure that food is safe has been of vital importance. And I think when we look at, the figures of our trade volume in the last 2-3 months, this is the area where we have a lot of progress and increase. I think this is one area. Another area I would say is digitalization. Those companies who invest in digitalization, who invest in IT, but also in the education of digitalization, will be the future winners. We all became, as President Abruzini mentioned, now we became digital people. We are using our mobile phones, we are using our laptops like that. So we are having our meetings virtually. I think this is an area where we can, obtain many benefits in the future. So I would name, just 2 areas for Turkish producers.
Thank you, Minister. There's a question from Ali Özenoğlu. It is in Turkey, but I'll try to read it in English. The question is to your ambassador. In the upcoming period, do you think that the EU will, when dealing with China, the EU will concentrate on quality and hygiene rather than price? That is the question.
Thank you. First of all, there are certain rules and regulations when it comes to the importation of goods into the European Union. There are quality rules. There are many other rules related to hygiene, to standards, etc., etc. But that's the regulatory framework for the importation. But then there is a business framework as well. Business companies need to evaluate their own risk or their own advantage of producing in certain parts of the world. And this is a debate, I think, that I've been following it with many of interlocutors in the last couple of weeks with business people in Turkey. This debate now is should we learn a lesson from this crisis? Is the lesson that the supply chains are in danger? Is there a lesson that the supply chains can be actually interrupted because you cannot import, not because you don't want to import, but because there is no transportation going on, or because people in some parts of the world were very reliant on their production there. People don't go to work or cannot go to work, and therefore the production is not happening. So the question is now, do we need to reevaluate the situation and maybe relocate some parts of those production lines back into Europe or the customs union, meaning including Turkey? And for all the reasons that that Rifat Bey mentioned early on, Turkey certainly has an advantage here. Turkey has a very resourcely business community, entrepreneurship. Turkey has very skilled and a young labor force. So there are a number of advantages for doing this. But after all, and ultimately, it's a decision by the business community to do this. It's their business, it's their risk, or it's their advantage they want to take here. And therefore, then what we can do as representatives of institutions or governments, we can help create the necessary regulatory framework for enabling this.
Mustafa Bey, if you allow me, I would like to add one other area, as far as the previous question was concerned. I mentioned, organic agriculture. I mentioned the digital sector, but since Christian mentioned transport, I would like to also underline the importance of transport and logistics, but especially air transport. Now we are just watching China. Since you mentioned China, I want to refer also to the transport issue. China is developing what we might call cargo drones. Imagine that we start transporting our goods by cargo drones. I think we will not need customs anymore. We will not need, trucks and truck drivers. So I think this is the future. And this is a very interesting area. So if these cargo drones can operate safely, and also completing maybe custom formalities at home quickly, I think this can be a future area. And I think this can also solve, some of the problems. Of course, it will create its own problems, but in terms of timing, in terms of safety, in terms of, reaching the destination quickly, maybe from one address to another address, and not using, any intermediary company in between. So this might be the future area of transport.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, Deputy Minister. There is a question from Ayhan Zeytinoğlu, the President of İKB and Vice President of TOP, to the. Do you expect any progress during the German presidency in the customs union?
Who is he asking?
Well, of course, Ambassador first, then Deputy.
Well, as I know, I mean, this question is obviously going around, and many people are talking about it. As I said before, it is the rotating presidency of the European Union that has an important say in this, because they're chairing the working groups that will be dealing with this. But also, as I mentioned before, it is now time, maybe until that moment, that we address also some of the irritants, as we call them, or the problems that we have been facing in the last few weeks and months. As I said, we have a good dialogue with the minister on all these issues. So I think we can lay the groundwork by addressing the current problems that we face in the customs union, the groundwork for moving on to the next step. But it would be I think not fair to give you a prediction of this, because I cannot do this. But certainly I understand, given also the trade relationship between Germany and Turkey, this is for sure an important topic for our colleagues here.
We know that Euro chambers want an updated customs union. and we know the top and Euro chambers are working to this effect, and reminding the importance of an expanded, enlarged customs union. This is a good thing for both sides. President Erdogan and German Chancellor spoke a couple of times in the last few months, and this is an issue that which is addressed by both sides. And the Foreign Minister also talked to his counterpart, and I had some consultations with the German Foreign Ministry on their presidency. This will be one of the issues that we want to make progress. I hope that this will not be further politicized, because I know in some circles there is a belief that Turkey should make some political steps before the update negotiations start. But let's not fall into this trap of vicious cycle. So I think we can start the negotiations, and this can create a very positive momentum. And I think Turkey more political reforms than expected. So this is an important thing. Christian mentioned the irritants. Of course, there are irritants on both ways. There are non-tariff barriers, unfortunately imposed by the EU side, but also sometimes by the Turkish side. And what we are saying that we should solve these irritants through the negotiations when we start the update negotiation. So this is from both sides. But and also, one of the reasons why Turkey wants to update the customs union is the asymmetric relation that we have right now, because the current customs union is not treating Turkey fairly on the decision-making shaping mechanism. The current customs union is not treating Turkey fairly in terms of free trade agreements, and also the current customs union is not helping Turkey in terms of transport, because of course transport is in the competence of the member states. We are aware of it, but also member states are members of the customs union between Turkey and the EU, and we have to solve these which are forcing Turkey, especially in the last few years. So I hope we can start the negotiations, and this, this understanding of negotiations and talking to each other to solve the problems will also create a very strong positive momentum in Turkey to accelerate the political reform process.
I have 44 questions, but I know, the time is we have reached to time. Just a question to me, I have to answer because as a moderator. The question is from Nick Hajinikos, our friend. He's asking how I choose the questions and to answer that are not listed in the question thread here. Well, just to inform you, we received questions before the meeting as a written questions from the participants. So I started with those questions. And here, the order is that the first come, first served. This is how we did. But I would like, with your permission, to read who asked questions, because I think that they need respect to mention their names. I will take your time, but please let me read their names. Çağlar Çetin, Nick Hajinikos, Tülay Güngör, Adem Moço, Çağlar Çetin again, Evren Bingöl, Çağdaş Doğan, Alanur Yazıcı, Pınar Çevikoğlu, İbrahim Yüksel, Ethem Kaya, Hikmet Atilla, Hasan Hüseyin Çakmak, Gözde Meşeli, Ayşe Günbey Şerifoğlu, Yelda Vedia Şimşek, Mustafa Ercan, and I have one question in German as well. Hikmet Atilla, also from Dilim, yes. So here, before closing, I would like to ask each of your respectful panelists for your last remarks. I would like to start with Arnaldo. Arnaldo, some closing remarks from you.
Well, there is one point that I want to raise. We normally used to say that business comes always earlier than politics. In saying this, we normally say that the interests of the business communities and societies at large are those that shape the action of the politics afterwards, and that try to even further facilitate and take stock of what the business community and societies wants at large. Now, in relationship between countries, or relationship between EU and Turkey today, we see that there are elements, and I've been looking also at the thread of questions over there, that needs an integration between the political side, the business side, and the societal side. There is no one single perspective that can win over everyone else. So my really hope is that this understanding will really enlighten the action of our political leaders. We have heard that through contacts between the President of Turkey, Erdogan, and the German Chancellor, Merkel, something might be moving during the next semester. But I would remind you that despite Germany so powerful, we do have a European Union which is made by a bunch of other member states. And we need to combine the interest and the sensitivity of everyone if we want to go ahead with this. And this requires an enormous capacity from diplomacy, from government, and from societies at large. This is my really hope, that we will be enlightened by these ideas to integrate different visions in one single action to go forward.
Thank you, Arnaldo. Now I would like to ask President Hisarcıklıoğlu for his closing remarks. Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Faruk Bey, Ambassador, and Arnaldo, for sharing your views with us. I also thank all participants for their participation. Also, I would like to thank the project team of the project team. Thank you very much for participation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ambassador?
Also, let me also thank everybody for making this possible. I think it was a very good debate. And it has gone in very important direction. I mean, beyond the very practical cooperation that we have on a day-to-day basis, we are talking now about a very strategic relationship. And I think one lesson of this crisis, if you look back the last 2-3 months, is we need more cooperation, partnership, and solidarity internationally. Between member states of the European Union, there was a debate early on. Then it was a debate between various nations across the globe. And for the relationship between the EU and Turkey, I think the business community, organizations like yours and both TOP and the business chambers, you are the glue for that relationship. You are the glue that brings together the European Union and Turkey, and has been doing this for many, many years. Whatever you say about the customs union, good or bad, this was certainly one of the results of this customs union, that there is a much closer interlinkage between the business community, but not only, many others as well. And this is something we need to expand and build on. And maybe now, with facing COVID, we can also do this in that context, by pooling our resources, by standing together, by putting our resources in research for a vaccine, for example, but also many other things. So let's use this, as I said in my speech earlier on, let's use this as an opportunity.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Deputy Minister Kaymakcı, please.
Thank you very much again for organizing this meeting. And thank you very much for inviting me to your offices, to your houses. I think it was a very useful discussion. We should continue. You know, as President Rifat Bey mentioned, the EU directorate always gives the priority to the business community, to the economic community, as well as the civil society. I think they will be the locomotive of Turkey's EU accession process. This is the key, because they will show the interest of both sides in this future marriage. I would like to say maybe one word for President Abruzini. He mentioned the unity of the EU, the solidarity of the EU. That is understandable, but EU is an important and also some sort of responsible structure. I don't want to say organization, because it is more than international organization, less than a state, a sui generis character. But at this, of course, we have to understand and we have to defend the interest of the member states. But nevertheless, the member states should not really abuse their membership, and this is at the cost of EU's general interest, especially against some of the candidate countries. So this is also important, and I think EU is too big and too important not to be taken hostage, by the narrow-minded, national agenda policy of some of the member states, because Europe belongs to all of us, and the EU makes our future. So we have to think big and we have to act globally, and I think this is also very important. So we should not limit ourselves to this veto game. We should think about a global actor and a geostrategic EU, and this is important, to keep this in mind, because we have seen during this pandemic, I wish the EU could have been a stronger actor. I can still say that the EU is the most successful organization in any part of the world to tackle this crisis. Although the EU has not been so impressive, it has not been so perfect, but nevertheless, it is still the EU which helped its member states more than any other organization. It has acted quickly. It is coordinating quite well now. And of course, EU will, become stronger and get bigger after this crisis, taking the lessons. But we should also think about globally. So EU should look at the world also from a global perspective, not only focusing in the internal, member state debates. And there is a big future as well for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. So here I would like to close this webinar, and still now we have 224 participants still listening. We started, of course, with more. Thank you very much for all the participants, and thank you very much for the valuable ideas you shared as a panelist with us. And we hope to see you soon in another event as TOBEN Euro Chambers and also the EU-Turkey Business Dialogue Project team. Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
So just one last word. We should also have joint consultative meeting as soon as possible, because this is also important. And joint consultative, committee meeting is important between Turkish business and EU business world. So let's not forget this meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.